podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
The Two-Footed Podcast is brought to you by EPLindex.com and our presenting sponsor, Liberty Shield. Liberty Shield is a VPN provider. A virtual privacy network allows you to go online, change your location, access things you're geo-blocked from, while keeping your data safe. So, as an example, if you are a UK expat and want access to BBC iPlayer to watch Match of the Day, or ITV Hub, or all four, but you get that message that says this content is not available in your location, a Liberty Shield VPN gets you around that block, allows you to watch whatever you want on those services while also keeping your data safe. And it goes further than that. It allows you to open up Netflix's entire library by just changing your IP address. Liberty Shield is the #1 rated VPN provider on Trustpilot with 5-star ratings across the board. So go to libertyshield.com right now, use the code EPL25 and get either the hardware package or the software package. The hardware package is a router that you plug into your existing router, and any item you want to change the IP address on, be it your phone or your television, you connect that to the new Liberty Shield router. All other items can remain connected to your existing router. There's also a software package which is instantly downloadable to your device and you can get using straight away. Again, libertyshield.com, EPL25 for 25% off at checkout. We're also brought to you by Home of Hopcroft, a giftware and homeware company located in Scotland but shipping worldwide. Check out homeofhopcroft.co.uk and do check out the EPL Index and Anfield Index shops, which you'll find on Etsy. Use the codes EPL10 or RED10 for 10% off at checkout. And lastly, do remember to check out A Tad Predictable, hosted by Tadiwa. That podcast is on this feed before every Premier League match week. And then the EPL Roundtable, hosted by Kevin DeVries, on its own EPL Roundtable feed. So just search EPL Roundtable in your podcast device. And that's out after every match week. Now, on with the show. What's good, boys and girls? Two-Footed Podcast. Today is Thursday. It is the 2nd of May. Hope you're all well and having a pleasant day. We had Champions League action last night. Semi-final first leg. Borussia Dortmund 1, Paris Saint-Germain 0. Dortmund taking the advantage from their home leg, and they will have something to defend with their lives in Paris next week. Nicholas Füllkrug with the only goal of the game. Really nice finish. Gave Donnarumma no chance. Dortmund should have scored a couple more. They created some really good chances. They probably should have had a penalty. Nuno Mendes, he definitely pushes Füllkrug in the back. Is it enough to give it a penalty? It looked like enough to call a penalty for me. Füllkrug's in the air. Mendes leans in, gives him a little shove. He probably scores if he doesn't get the shove. Now, PSG had more than enough chances. Ousmane Dembele missed a sitter. Kolo Muani missed a sitter. Fabian Ruiz missed a good chance. Mbappe hit the post. Hakimi hit the post. They had more than enough chances to win the game. But Dortmund played really well. And it was a really good game. A really, really good game. I thought the Dortmund wide players, Sancho and Adeyemi, caused a lot of problems for PSG. Obviously, PSG wanting to have their two fullbacks get quite high and offer width. And Dortmund were able to play into the space they were leaving behind. Ian Maatsen, I thought, had a good game at left back. Nico Schlotterbeck had a good game. Emre Can had a good game. For Dortmund, I think they'll be absolutely delighted with the win that they got and coming away with the lead, knowing that they can go to Paris and play on the counter-attack, because PSG will have to open up. PSG have, obviously, the firepower. I think this is, without question, the most talented PSG squad that there's been. I just think they're badly managed. I really do. I just think they're badly managed. I'm not a fan of Luis Enrique as a manager at all. I understand he won a European Cup at Barcelona. He won a European Cup with Messi, Suarez, and Neymar. It's the best front three that's ever been put together. He had Busquets and Iniesta, two of the best three-man midfield there's ever been. Rakitic was outstanding. Dani Alves was in that team. Piqué was in that team. Like, back to front, that was just a great team. I'm not sure he deserves as much credit as he gets for one Champions League. Zidane won 3 in a row with a less talented team. So, look, it is what it is. He'll be there until they decide that they want to replace him. I just don't think he's all that good. I don't think Terzic is all that good either, but he does have a knack for cup games. That's the one thing Terzic is really strong with, is cup games. In the league, he just can't get the job done. But in the cups, he does know what he's doing. And credit to him. We have Europa League action tonight and Europa Conference League action. So in the Europa League, Marseille home to Atalanta. Marseille knocked out Benfica on penalties in the quarterfinal. Atalanta obviously vanquished Liverpool. That should be a pretty good game. Neither team are what you would call exceptional. Marseille are currently 7th in the French league. They've only won 11 league games all season. They draw far too many games. Aubameyang is in great form in this competition, and there's definitely quite a lot of talent in the team. Like, there's some really good players that should be doing better than they are. I'm not a big fan of Gasset, who's the current manager. He was obviously brought in February. Marcelinho had started the season. He's obviously now at Villarreal. Gattuso had replaced him in September. He's no good. And Gasset, who'd been manager of the Ivory Coast, sacked after the group stage, and then obviously they went on and won the AFCON, which is just hilarious. Like, does he get in any way credit for that? Does he have a winner's medal? I have no idea. But there is good players in this squad. There's a lot of players that were expected to be more than they've become. That's what there really is here. Quinton Merlin, the left back, he's one, when he was 17, 18, he was very highly regarded. He hasn't quite hit the heights, but he's still only 21, so plenty of time for him. Leonardo Balerdi, when he was leaving Boca Juniors to go to Dortmund, which going back now 5 years, he was being talked up as the best Argentine defender since Passarella, and it hasn't worked out at all. He is still a good defender, but he's not what he was made out to be. Jonathan Klaus, I quite like, the right back. Ouanahi, the Moroccan midfielder, obviously had a tremendous World Cup. He's been pretty good for Marseille, but I don't think he's been as good as they'd hoped. Aubameyang, Amin Harat, one of the most gifted players in Europe a few years back when he was at Schalke, prior to that at Nantes, but just never quite was able to find any consistency in his game. Still very talented. John Onana, he's a player I have liked for a while. He was at Lille, went to Bordeaux, was at Lens, went to Besiktas last summer, and for whatever reason, just didn't get on with anybody, got excluded from the squad. They paid, as far as I can remember, a decent chunk of money for him, and then they just shanghaied him out of the squad, and he's away off at Marseille now on loan. Jeffrey Kondogbia, he's had a decent career, never became the player he should have. Joaquin Correa is another one, super talented, but just consistency escapes him. Ismail Assar, we remember when Sarr came to the Premier League with Watford, and he was going to be the next big thing. He'd done quite well at Rennes, but just hasn't become the player he was expected to be. I do very much like Iliman Ndiaye. I do like Papagay. I think they're both very good players. Jordan Verretou, I mean, remember when he came to Villa and looked completely lost, and then went to Serie A and looked great for Fiorentina and Roma? Hasn't quite been as good since joining Marseille. And Luis Enrique is in that squad as well. He's a talented kid, but it hasn't worked since he came over on loan. Or since he came over from Botafogo. He went back on loan and it wasn't great either. They spent quite a bit of money putting this squad together, and I'm not sure they're getting the reward for it with where they are in the league. Atalanta, obviously, battling away for a Champions League spot through Serie A. They're currently 6th, 2 points behind Roma. They do have a game in hand. They also have to play Roma. And obviously Roma are still in this competition as well. Again, with Atalanta, there's a feeling that they're underachieving. There's some really, really talented players in this squad. If you take a look at just the goalkeeping situation, Carnesecchi I think he's going to be really, really good. I'm so impressed with him. But Juan Musso is very, very good as well. There's 2 excellent goalkeepers. Would question the centre-backs outside of Scalvini. Jim City's okay. I think Hine is decent. Not a big fan of Palomino. Toloi, I think, is past his best and one that they should probably look to move on. But Scalvini is outstanding and has a huge future. The right backs, Holm is okay. He can play centre back as well. I'm not a fan of Zabacosta, and Hateboer as well past his best. At left wing back, I wouldn't be a fan of Mitchell Bakker. I didn't quite understand what they were doing when they signed him, but I do like Rougerie. I think he's really, really good. Wouldn't be a fan of Said Klasnik either. In midfield, Koop Miners is good. He's not elite, but he is good. I think this is a good club for him. He seems to have ideas of moving up in the world, and moving up maybe in Serie A, fair enough, but I really hope Liverpool don't go that way. Pasalic never became the player he was expected to be. Martin de Roon is, he's a solid, reliable grafter. Adopo looks a player, but doesn't get consistent minutes. Moranchuk is very good, very, very talented player. And Ederson is an absolute monster in midfield. An absolute beast in there. Tremendous player. The forward players I do like. De Ketelaere, really like him. Scamacca, love him. Always liked Ademola Lookman. The one I'm excited to see more of next season is El Bilal Toure, brought in from Almeria in the summer. I think there's real potential for him and Scamacca to form a hell of a partnership. But this season, I would say without doubt they have underperformed. Now, they had a lot of turnover and a lot of turmoil with the squad in the summer. A lot of players left, a lot of players arrived. But I feel like, fifth last year, eighth the year before. I wonder with Gasperini, has he ever so slightly just overstayed the mark? Like 8 years is a long time to be at any club, particularly in Serie A, where managers generally don't stick around that long. Like if we take a look at Serie A, let's see. Right. Gasperini, so 8 years. Thiago Motta at Bologna, he's there 2 years now. Ranieri at Cagliari, he was appointed last year. Nicola at Empoli, he was appointed this year. Italiano at Fiorentina, he's there 3 years. Mazzatelli at Frosinone, he is... Oh, I've looked up he's the cap. Di Francesco is who I meant to say. Sorry for Frosinone. Mazzatelli's the centre-back. Di Francesco is a year at Frosinone. Gilardino at Genoa, he's there 2 years. He's done a really good job. Really impressed with him. Marco Baroni at Hellas Verona, he's there a year. Simone Inzaghi at Inter, he's been there now 3 years. Allegri at Juve, 3 years. Igor Tudor at Lazio, he's only there a matter of months. Luca Gotti at Lecce, a matter of months. Pioli at AC Milan, he's there a while, 5 years. And it looks like he's out this summer. Palladino at Monza, 2 years. Calzona at Napoli, a matter of months. And not staying beyond the summer. De Rossi at Roma, he's technically only the caretaker, but it's a matter of months. Colantuono, Salernitana, he's there a matter of months. This is his third spell there. He doesn't seem to work now anymore unless they call him. Ballardini at Sassuolo, a matter of months. Ivan Juric at Torino, he's there 3 years. And Fabio Cannavaro is currently at Udinese, and it's been, again, a matter of months. Like, managers just don't stay. It's actually been a week for Cannavaro. Now, I don't think he's a particularly good manager, to be honest. It feels more like just get a big name in, get anybody in that's recognizable. He was sacked at Benevento after doing a really poor job. I just don't think he's much good as a manager. Incredible footballer, but not good as a manager. But when you look at that, like, he's 3 years longer than the next longest manager, who's Pioli, who's the only one who's been at his current club other than Gasperini for more than 3 years. Like, managers just don't stay a long time at clubs in Italy. Even just look at this season, right? In season, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 different managers have been sacked. Now, some clubs have sacked multiple managers. Napoli, for example, have sacked 2 managers. Empoli have sacked 2 managers. Salernitana have sacked 2 managers. Quite funny that Filippo Inzaghi was sacked by Salernitana this year while his brother has run away with the league title. But he's not a good manager. It's so funny. It's always been a funny thing with Serie A as well, where you look at, like, you just pick a random manager and you look at how many different jobs they've had. And like, it is mind blowing how many clubs so many of these managers cycle through. Like, take Pioli as an example, right? He gets his first job as an out and out manager in the 03-04 season with Salernitana, right? So that's 20, 21 years, 20 years, 21 seasons. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. AC Milan is his 13th job. 13th job. Prior to joining Milan, he'd never spent more than 2 years at a club. Salernitana a year, Modena 2 years, Parma a year, Grosseto a year, Piacenza a year, Sassuolo a year, Chievo a year, Palermo a year, Bologna 2 years, Lazio 2 years, Inter Milan a year, Fiorentina 2 years. It's crazy. 51 games, 71 games. Then he got sacked and rehired by Modena, which is always a very funny Italian thing. Came back for 16 games, gone again. 32 games at Parma, 39 at Grosseto, 43 at Piacenza, 47 at Sassuolo, 41 at Chievo, 2 at Palermo, 2. 97 at Bologna. He was there a little over 2 calendar years. Lazio 91, Inter 27 games all he lasted there, 74 at Fiorentina, and now 236 at Milan. Well over double anything he'd done before. 13 clubs, it's just wild, like. How did I get on to talk this? Oh, Atalanta and Gasperini. Gasperini, I think it might be time for him to look to move on this summer. If I'm being honest, I think it's time for him to move on this summer. I think that's the best thing for everyone involved. In the other semi-final, we obviously have runaway Bundesliga winners Bayer Leverkusen, whose squad is an awful lot of fun. Like, there's so many good players there. I'm not a big fan of the goalkeeper, Radecki, but he's been good this season without question. But you've got Hincapié, Casono, and Tapsoba, like all of them. Jonathan Tah, he's fine. He's good. He's not the player he was expected to be. Stanisic is decent. Jonas Hoffman is decent. Andrich is important. Iglesias I'm not a fan of. Wirtz is incredible. Artur, I think, was signed with the view of Frimpong might leave. Schick is good. Don't know much about Kovar. Mbamba looks very promising. Tella was obviously in the Premier League for a while. He's a good player. Grimaldo's been incredible for them. Amin Adli's good. Boniface is really good. Flozic is promising. Fosu Mensah came through at United. Good player. Never really found a home. Palacios is outstanding. Frimpong is incredible. Monime, I don't know much about. Puerta looks good. Granit Xhaka, the last 2 years, has been really, really good. This is a really good squad. A really, really good squad. Alonso got very lucky in what he walked into. Like, he walked into a team that had the bones of a title-winning team, which, if you'd been listening to me 3 years ago, that's exactly what I was saying when Sione was there. That if they could keep this core together and add some pieces. Now, that's exactly what they've been able to do. But they finished third under Sione, then had a really bad start the next season, binned him off, which I thought was a mistake, but in retrospect has turned out to be the right move. The whole relegation zone to title thing is horseshit. Like, it's just something people want to spout about. But really and truly, if there's 8 games gone in the season, it's absolutely irrelevant what position you are in the league. it's irrelevant after 8 games. He got them as high as 6th last year. They could have gotten even higher, but they had a poor end to the year. But good buys in the summer, clever. And they've run away with the league. They're almost certainly going to win the German Cup. And you'd have to make them favourites to win the Europa League, I think, as things stand. Now, Roma will be tough. Roma will be a tough task. De Rossi has them playing well. As I said earlier, they're 5th in Serie A. They've got a new belief about them. I quite like a lot of the squad. Not a big fan of Patricio. Not a big fan of Karsdorp. Dean Huijsen, I really like the look of. I'd imagine the Dutch are very upset that he's decided to declare for Spain. And I believe, given he played for Spain's under-21s, he is now tied to Spain. I believe he's tied to Spain, but he hasn't played for the senior team. I might look into that, but he's super talented. Big fan of him. Cristante I quite like. Evan Ndicka I'm not as high on as others, but he is good. Chris Smalling is fine. Lorenzo Pellegrini's a very good player. Tammy Abraham's a very good player. Llorente is decent. Paredes is excellent. Asmon I've always liked. Zeki Celik I like. Renato Sanchez I love, but he just can't stay fit. Paulo Dybala is an amazing footballer. Hassimauer, one of the more disappointing players of the last 15 years, 20 years, 35 years, however long you want to look. He looked so special. So special when he was coming through at Lyon and just stayed far too long. And unfortunately, just it killed his development. I like Mancini. Baldanzi, I don't know a whole bunch about. He's only a young player they signed from Empoli earlier this year. Spinazzola's decent. Christensen I like. Bove I like. Zalewski I like. Angelino I'm not a huge fan of. Lukaku's Lukaku. El Shawari, he's another one that should have been better than he is. Like, when he came through at Genoa, he genuinely looked like he was going to be something incredible. Went to Milan too early and never really kicked on. I like that he's done well at Roma, left, and then come back, because Roma's the club where he's had his best showings. And Miles Sviller, the goalkeeper, I've been really happy to see him getting a run of games, because when Benfica signed him, he was only a kid. Was he 18? He was 18. They signed him to replace Ederson, I want to say. Yeah, because they'd had Oblak. They sold Oblak, replaced him with Ederson, sold Ederson, and bought this kid from Anderlecht. And he was seen as like the next great Belgian goalkeeper. And Belgium have had some phenomenal goalkeepers over the years. And it didn't work at all. He had some horrendous performances. Absolutely horrendous performances. It was very clear that the stage was too big from the nerves got to him, and he was just really poor. But he went through 5 years there, joined Roma, and he appears to be back on track. He was brilliant in the penalty shootout against Feyenoord. He appears to have gotten himself back on track. Still only 24, which is young for a goalkeeper, so has plenty of time to rectify things. He has declared to play for Serbia rather than his native Belgium. He's got Serbian parents. So maybe that as well. Maybe not having to, have the shadow of Courtois and Prudhomme and Faf and people like that over him is helping him. Anyway, Leverkusen at Roma tonight. At Atalanta, at Marseille. Second legs next week should be fun. Let's do the Europa Conference League a bit quicker. No need to deep dive into any of these squads. Aston Villa against Olympiacos. Villa knocked out Lille on penalties. Olympiacos knocked out Fenerbahce on penalties. Villa will be strong favourites, but I think they have to win tonight. They have to win the home game. You don't want to go away needing a result over there. Fiorentina against Bruges. Bruges knocked out PAOK. Fiorentina knocked out Pleasant. Struggled a little bit at times. I'm inclined to wonder, can Bruges pull off the upset here? There's a lot of talent in that Bruges squad. Now, Fiorentina will rightly be favourites, but there is a lot of talent in that squad. Ordonez, the centre-back, really, really good. Keep an eye on him. Joel Ordonez, only 20 years of age. Very, very interesting. Noosa, the left winger, obviously, is one that a lot of people are very keen on. Bjorn Meyer, the left back, very, very good as well. There's a lot of talent in that squad, but Fiorentina should have a little bit too much for them. I don't know the fitness status of certain players, but Dodo, the right back, is really good. Milinkovic, the centre back, is good. Mandragora in midfield has always been good. Nico Gonzalez is really, really talented. The right winger, quite like Lucas Beltran, the striker who's playing as the 10. I think that's an innovative thing that they've done with him. And obviously, Belotti is there at the moment. They're on loan from Roma. And he's still a pest and a menace and whatever else. So I'll go Villa and Fiorentina, and I'll be back after the break. Right, welcome back. So it is Thursday. We're going to do some questions because Guy was good enough to send me on the questions that are in the Anfield Index Discord. So if you want to put questions in there, just tag Guy and he'll see them and send them on to me. So Isaac Gilding, if you're building your all-time 11 with what you perceive as the best players in each position included, is it better than if you made an all-time balanced 11 where the players are as good as possible but maybe would actually play together more effectively? Which team would come out on top? I like to think my all-time 11 is balanced. Buffon in goal, Zanetti right back, Maldini left back. I mean, they're really adaptable to any system that I want to play and any centre-back pairing that I want to include. So, generally speaking, I would go Nesta, Baresi, McGrath, Baresi. I think either of them work. Van Dijk has become the best centre-back I've ever seen. But because he's still playing, I'm not going to include him. And he's still playing at his peak level. So his time isn't up yet. I like to think any of that pairing would fit together. In midfield, Redondo and Lothar Matthäus, I think, works really well. And the reason I think it would work really well is because I've seen Redondo play with not dissimilar players to Matthäus. I also saw him play with Laudrup, very attack-minded player in a midfield pairing, and it worked brilliantly. So if I have Matthäus doing his bit of everything and Redondo kind of sitting in, dictating play, but also being able to carry the ball and play high while Matthäus slots behind him, I think that midfield pairing works perfectly. I think Zidane was a very malleable player whose skill set goes with pretty much anybody. Laudrup gives me the option of width on the right-hand side. So he can also play narrow as a 10, which means I can play it as a box midfield. I can play it as a midfield 3 because he can drop into midfield, having played there later in his career. So I think that works. and then Maradona off R9. And again, I just think the pieces all fit together. Like, I don't need Zidane holding width. I don't need Laudrup always holding width. But if one of them does it, great. And remember, Zidane played with Figo. Figo is the closest thing we've seen to Laudrup since Laudrup, and that worked brilliantly. So I do think that works as your kind of wide attacking midfield types. Maldini and Zanetti can cover the flanks, both defensively, but also in terms of giving width, and they can both bring a creative aspect to it. So I actually think when I pick my 11, I actually think it does work really well as a team. Yeah. Let's see. RSC Civitas. RS Civitas. Question for the pod: with Klopp's era coming to an end at Liverpool, are you worried the transition might not be smooth? Historically, managerial transitions in the Premier League have not been smooth. Man United, Arsenal, Everton, Tottenham. Should fans expect a refresh, rebuild, and manage expectations? Well, they should manage expectations. I do think there was an opportunity for Liverpool to actually get better under the next manager pretty quickly, but I just don't think they've appointed the guy to do that. I would throw Spurs out of that. Now, I know Poch was there for a number of years, but I think like Conte did well there in that first season. The problem for Spurs was a lack of planning. So they ended up going in the wrong direction first, ended up with Conte, and then there's just too much noise around the club. But that's a club issue. That's a badly run institution at that point, where you had Paratici, who wasn't good at his job, Daniel Levy busy with other things, and just the eye got taken off the ball. With Everton, replacing Moyes was going to be tough because Moyes had been there 11 years and sort of shaped the club in his image, but also there wasn't anything above Moyes. There was no football structure above Moyes that you could really put your faith into. There also wasn't a particularly strong squad, if we're being completely honest. But let's not forget, Roberto Martinez did quite well when he first took over. So his first season, I think his league finish was higher than any Moyes finish bar one. So that's not bad. United and Arsenal are very different, though, to what's happening at Liverpool. Number one, much, much longer tenures. Moyes was longer at Everton as well. But also, Ferguson and Wenger were holdovers from the old style of a football club, where the manager was everything from the top down. Now, in recent years, Klopp has accumulated a lot of power, and he has taken on more of that role. But Ferguson was shaping that club in that way for the better part of 20 years. Also remember, David Gill left the same summer, and he was vital. With Wenger being at Arsenal as long as he was without David Dean actually did Arsenal harm. When David Dean and Wenger were together, that was a great partnership. When Wenger was there by himself, I mean, all they won was some FA Cups. Klopp hasn't had as long as those two to really institutionalize the club to the point where it can't work without them. I also think Ferguson didn't want the club to succeed after him, if I'm being honest. But those were two clubs with questionable owners as well, and no good football people outside of them. I mean, Ivan Gazidis or whatever his name is, he was awful. And when Wenger left, they had to change everything. Now, Liverpool are having to change everything as well, but the guy who's going to be running the show is Michael Edwards, who's been there before and was absolutely vital in building the team that won the Champions League and Premier League. And had he not left, had the power struggle not happened, I actually think Liverpool would have won a second Premier League title and probably a second Champions League as well, with a team that would look quite different to the team that's there now. Because I don't think Edwards would have kept hold of certain players as long as Klopp did. I think he would have turned the squad over more, and I think Liverpool would have had more success. So, will there be change? Yes. Will there be a refresh, a rebuild? Yeah, I think it probably does lean more towards rebuild. Not a total teardown, but Liverpool are in a rebuild, remember. Like, this idea that Liverpool are the finished product, it's not the case. Last summer was year one of a rebuild. Like, Arsenal are set to enter year 5 of a rebuild next year. And they may win the league this year, but as yet they've won nothing. Liverpool are in year 1 and just won the League Cup. So they're well ahead of schedule. I think they're in a good position, and that rebuild just continues. AMK 2889. If Slot is to be the next manager for Liverpool, are there currently any Feyenoord players? No. No is the answer. Do not buy any Feyenoord players. It never works. When a manager makes a jump the size of this one, do not let him bring players with him. Even if you think maybe, like Mats Wiefer, Gertruda, maybe. And frankly, if Klopp was staying on, I would say, yeah, bring them in. But not when it's a new manager. Not when it's the new manager bringing in his former players. I don't like that. I don't think it works. So I'd be swerving every Feyenoord player. And frankly, every player in the Eredivisie for now. Henner's East. Is Michael Edwards trying to prove the point that as long as the recruitment is correct and the manager for the most part should be plug and play? In some ways, I think he is. And I think in some ways he might be right. I think it's not just the recruitment, though. It's the overall structure. And every department has to be operating at their apex. From the medical department to the scouting team, both in terms of recruitment scouting, but also opposition scouting. I think the analysts have to all be on their game. I think as long as all the departments are staffed by best in class and working to their best level, I think you can get away with having less than an elite manager. I think great structure and good manager is better than great manager and poor structure. And Liverpool have had a poor structure in recent years. Okay. ORS Civitas, I'm sorry, but Civitas maybe. Second question from him. This one came in the other day. I got into a debate with a Liverpool fan on whether Liverpool should aim and expect to finish in the Champions League spot next season. I think that's unrealistic. I think anything outside of top 4 is unacceptable and fireable, frankly. There's no way Liverpool shouldn't be finishing in the top 4 next year. Who's going to finish above them? Like, look at this season. Realistically, going into this season, 3rd was the floor for this team. Everybody knew United were smoke and mirrors last year. Everybody knew Newcastle had gone a year early and were going to fall back to the crowd. Chelsea were a mess. Spurs, first year under a new manager, they had a long way to come. Villa, like, top 4, I said it in the summer, top 4 is definitely a possibility, but they weren't going to finish above Liverpool. So tell me now, who's more likely to finish above them next season? United probably will have a new manager. Chelsea likely will have a new manager. Are Spurs going to make up that difference? I'm not sure. Are Villa? I doubt it. I could see Villa dropping back a bit next year with Champions League football on their card. Toon are in an awkward position with FFP, and I also just don't think Eddie Howe's an elite level manager. So, like, who's going to finish above them? Again, I think 3rd is the floor for Liverpool next year. 4th is the bare minimum, and anything below that is unacceptable. Mikhail Campbell, where does Gregor Kobel rank in among the best goalkeepers in the world? Is he top 10 in your eyes? Were you surprised by Kareem Adeyemi's performance last night? Could you see him playing as a wing back? No, I couldn't see him playing as a wing back. But I really enjoyed his performance. I really did. I think him and Matson down the left. Like I really like playing one winger on their natural side, which is why I've always said I'd love Pedro Neto at Liverpool on the left wing, because I just think he would absolutely torture fullbacks. And if you've got a good fullback coming from behind him who's got the technical ability to go inside and outside, as Matson has, I think that works so well. Like, one of the reasons I loved watching Brighton last year was, now it's an inverted winger, but Matoma and Estupiñán down that side made it so hard for fullbacks to cope, because Matoma could go outside them or cut in field. Estupiñán could overlap or underlap, and he was really clever about it. Matson's not as quick as Estupiñán, but probably slightly more technically gifted. I don't know if Matson has the pace to play with a Neto. Now, Adeyemi's rapid as well. He's probably as quick. But it can be very hard to overlap like a lightning quick winger. I remember when Liverpool had Fabio Aurelio and Marc Gonzalez playing on the left. And God love him, Aurelio couldn't catch Gonzalez to overlap him. But I do love having a left-footed left winger. I really do. Like, even Kudus would do there for me, because he's obviously really good 1v1 as well. But Neto is just that different level to me of dribbler and creator. Kudus, I think, will become a big time goal. Not a Salah level goal scorer, but I can see Kudus getting 20 a season. Whereas I look at Neto and I think he'll give me 8 goals and 15 or 20 assists in the right system with the right setup. And that's more what I'd like. And then if I could have say, Michael Elise on the other side, who I think can be 15 and 15, Szoboszlai as a 10, who I think can be 15 and 10 to 12, and then a 9 that gets me 25. That's how I would want my front four made up. But yeah, I really enjoyed Adeyemi's performance last night. As for Gregor Kobel, definitely top 10. Christ, I haven't even thought about it in a while. I know I did the rankings a few months ago for goalkeeper, but I would say Alisson is the best keeper in the world. I would say, I would have Oblak 2. I would have Courtois 3. Courtois 3. I'd go Mike Magnon 4. Marc-Andre Ter Stegen 5. Donnarumma 6. Neuer. No, Neuer's not 7. Not now. He's probably still top 10. Emi Martinez, I'd go 7. And I think I'd go Gregor Kobel 8. Neuer 9. And 10. Been very impressed by Vicario, but there's still some flaws in his game. Ederson maybe 10. Yeah, Ederson, I don't even think he's that good. I think there's a lot of flaws with his game. Unai Simon is one I think you'd need to consider. Karnaseki, very impressed. Mamardashvili, very, very impressed. Hmm. Who would I go 10? I might go Vicario 10, just for now. I might go Vicario 10. Yeah, that'll be my 10 for now. So yeah, Gregor Kobel, absolutely. But I have him eighth. I think eighth is about right. About level with Emi Martinez. So I'd have him slightly above Neuer because Neuer has declined significantly, and just a hint above Vicario. Yeah, I think I'm happy with that. I think I'd go with him as the eighth best keeper right now. But there is a lot of good goalkeepers. And like I say, there's two that are really on the up that people need to be watching, which is Karnaseki and Mamardashvili. Those two are, I think, going to be the you know two that get talked about in the elite conversation. Anatoly Trubin is another, the Ukrainian at Benfica. The other Ukrainian, Lunev at Real, I do like very much as well. There's a lot of good goalkeepers around. AMK, what do you think Dortmund need to do to become an actual consistent winner of the Bundesliga, as well as be able to be a dominant threat and possible winners in Europe? Who would you have stay and go, and what manager do you think is the right person for the job? So, if I look at this Dortmund squad, now I'm just going to pretend that they own Ian Maatsen and Jadon Sancho, because if I was running Dortmund, I would find a way to ensure that I was keeping both of them this summer. That would be a non-negotiable thing for me. I'm keeping both of them. Kobel in goal, absolutely. Schlotterbeck, left side centre back. Madsen, left back. I really like that. So I need a right back and a right side centre back. Emre Can I've always been a fan of, but I think he'd be my third midfielder. I really like Salih Özcan. I'm not fully sure why he hasn't excelled at Dortmund the way I thought he would, but I'd keep him. And Nemecha I would keep. So Ben Sabiani I'd keep for depth. Mori I'd keep for depth. Royce I keep because he's a legend. Fulkrug I keep for depth. Hummels I move on. Duranville I keep because he's really exciting. Marius Wolf I move on. Makoko I keep. Brand I move on. Sabitzer I move on. Malin I move on. Matson I keep. Chan I keep. Sula I keep for depth. Ryerson I keep for depth. Adiemi I keep. Ollie Pullman let go. Kamara I keep. Meyer I keep. Lotka I keep. Beno Gittins I keep. And Papadopoulos, you might as well keep. He can play a couple of positions, but always good to have an extra defensive midfielder option. Gio Reyna, I'd let him go. I just think he's problematic. Koulibaly, I'd bring back. And Tom Roth, I'd keep him because he's still very young and he can play a few positions for me. Right, so I've got Sebastian Haller as a 9, but he doesn't score enough goals. I'm actually going to sell him. I'll keep Fulkrug and sell Haller. Now, it's not Haller's fault. He's been ill. He's had different issues, but I'm going to move him on. I'm going to start off. I've got Kobel in goal. I've got Schlotterbeck. I've got Matson. I've got Adiemi on the left. I've got Sancho as my 10. I need a right winger. I want 2 central midfielders, a striker, and a right back and a right-sided centre back. That's a lot. That's 6 players, but you've got pretty much all the depth you could need already. So, manager wise, I mean, Arne Slot would have been one of my top choices for manager. I mean, do I just go Ruben Amorim here and go to a back three? Maatsen works perfectly. Sancho works. Adeyemi would be a squad player under Amorim. But Oscan, I think, works really well in midfield. So then I only need one in midfield and not two. But I'd need 2 centre-backs. I'm tempted to just say go Amorim as manager because he's the best out there. He is a special manager. And I think he wins the Bundesliga. If I go Kobel, let's have a look. We'll go Malik Thiaw as one of the centre-backs. Fits really well into what Amorim does. And we'll stay German with our centre-backs. So we go Armel Bella Kotchap because he likes to have one of them that is super athletic. So that's Bella Kotchap. Malik Thiaw in the middle, where he is commanding, he is dominant in the air, he reads the game well, and Schlotterbeck on the left. So that gives me my back three in front of Gregor Kobel. I've got Maatsen as a left wing back. And I don't think either of those 2 centre-backs would be overly expensive. Bella Kotchap's value is probably rock bottom right now after a strange season at Saints and then a year on loan at PSV where he hasn't played a lot. So I think you could get him potentially at a good price. Daniel Mallon has been linked with AC Milan, so I wonder is there some sort of deal you can do there to get Malik Thiaw. But that sorts my back three. Like I say, I've got Maatsen, so I want a young right back. I want someone attacking. I mean, ideally, Frimpong, but you're not going to get Frimpong. Would Vanderson of Monaco be a good option there? Could see him doing a really good Frimpong impression, or as more to the point, more Pedro Porro impression up and down that side. What age is Vanderson? He's like 23 or 24 now. Came quite close to signing for Brentford a few years ago. He's 22. Oh yeah, this is the guy. We'll go with him. He's a natural wing back as well. So we'll have those 2 as the wing back options. Midfield. I definitely go Lamine Camara, 100%. You've heard me talk about him before. He would absolutely be my top target in midfield. So I get him in. He can do a bit of everything in midfield. To partner him, I mean, ideally, Pape Matar Sarr, but there's no way Spurs would be that foolish. Could I potentially steal a march on English clubs, go to Leeds and go to Archie Gray and say, look what we did for Jude Bellingham. Come here and the same thing can happen to you. You give us 3-4 years and you'll be one of the best players in the world. It's a very young midfield. But if I've got Oscar and Chan and others there to rotate, I don't need to play them every game. So I'd do that. In attack, Sancho for sure. Do you know what? I might just go Sancho and Adeyemi behind the striker, just to have that extra pace of Adeyemi in the team. Sancho's creativity. But who that nine is tough. Like, Fulkrug would work, but it's not ideal. Santiago Jimenez would be perfect. Santiago Jimenez is the one we'll go for. Of Feyenoord. Because I'm looking for someone that's got similarities to Gyökeres. So I'll go with Santiago Jimenez. Now, again, it's a lot of money. He's going to be 40. Gray's going to be 40. Kamara, I think you'll get for 15. Vanderson is 20, so that's 115. I think Bella you might get for 15, so that's 130. And Thiaw probably 20, so that's 100 what's that, 150 million? Plus you've got to buy Sancho, plus you've got to buy Maatsen, so that's going to push you to about 220 million, which is obviously more than Dortmund would normally be looking to spend on anything. But who can we sell that will bring in money? I mean, Hummels is not bringing in money. Sebastian Haller might bring in 20 if you sold him to Saudi. So we'll say 20 for him. Daniel Malin, 40 has been mentioned. I don't think he's worth that, but let's say 30. So that's 50. Sabitzer could bring 15, maybe. Brand might bring 10. That's 75. Reina maybe brings in 10. It's 85. Maybe you can sell Beno Gittins. There's been talk of clubs in England liking him at about the 15 million mark. So we're probably over the 100 million mark there. So it's about 120 million of money spent. Now, the one thing I will say, last summer, they brought in about 115 million and spent about 60. So they made a huge profit last summer. The previous summer, they sold Haaland, they sold Akanji, and they probably had a net spend in the region of about 10 million. Summer before that, they sold Sancho, Tolian, Gomez, Bellardi, a few others. They probably made a profit of about 40 million that summer. So, like, over the last years, they have made enough to carry off one big spend if they really wanted to. But it would be one big spend and then tighten the belts for a couple of years. But that type of team, like, that could develop together. I really like the idea of that back three. And I like the wing backs, Vanderson and Maatsen. I think you could do a lot of damage with that group. You add those two young midfielders to Chan, Oskan and Nemecha, and now you've got just great options in there, like about as strong a core of midfielders as you're going to find. And then the same thing in attack. You'd have Sancho, Adeyemi, Jimenez, Fulkrug, Makoko, Duranville, Royce. Like, it would just be a pretty complete squad with a great manager. Might take a year for everybody to bed in and get used to each other. But then I think in year two, I think he'd be special. So there we go. There's that. And I think something came in on Twitter earlier on. Teo Saki. Questions for the pod. How would you rate Moises Caicedo's season so far? There's no other way to look at it other than it's been hugely disappointing. I mean, off what he did last year, he hasn't been close. He's been better than people have made out. Let's be clear on that. He's had some excellent games, but he's had some really poor games, and he's made a lot of mental errors as well. Like just mental slips that didn't happen to him last year. I don't think he's happy there. The midfield pairing with him and Enzo just doesn't work. But if you're grading it, it can only be like a D, C minus D. But yeah, most likely a D. Who do you think will be the next crop of great goalkeepers? So yeah, like I said earlier, Mamadashvili, Anatoly Trubin, those two special, and Karnaseki is exceptional as well. Quite like the guy at Monza, Di Gregorio, but I think he's like 26. I'm not sure if he counts. And Gavin Basunu I'd throw into that group as well. Rank Matthias Tell, Rafael Leao, and Nico Williams. Well, Leao won, but he's also a decent amount older, isn't he? Like, what is he? He's 24, I think. Rafael Leao will be 25 this summer. So, like, he's approaching his peak, whereas Nico Williams is only 21, turns 22 this year. Very, very talented player. I need to see more output, though. I need to see more goals from him. Matthias Tell is only 19, and he's just turned 19. He is special. If I was ranking them for Liverpool, I would actually go him first because of his age and the potential I think he has. I think he could be genuinely a special, special player. So I'll go him one for Liverpool. Overall, Leao is one, Williams is two, Tell is three. But for Liverpool, I'll go Tell one, Leao two, and Williams three. And the reason I would put Tell over Leao is actually more to do with off ball, where Tell is really good. His movement's good. His work rate's good. His pressing is good. And Rafael Leao stands around and waits for the ball, which frustrates the life out of me. But yeah, that's where I would go with that. All right. That is all our questions. Back after this. Right. Welcome back. So we do have a Premier League game tonight. Tottenham travel to Stamford Bridge to take on Chelsea. If Spurs don't win, top four is over, I think, for them. If they only take 1 point, they'd be 6 points behind with 4 games left. And when we look at their remaining fixtures, they've got Liverpool and City, which are both tough. Now, look, Villa don't have it all their own way. They've got Liverpool to play as well. They've got Brighton, which is tough. Crystal Palace are in decent form. They're three different, difficult enough games, especially considering, the Brighton game is in between the two Olympiacos games. The Liverpool game is at home on a Monday, which I think they'll win. And then Palace away, the way I look at it is if they need to win that, they will win that. If Spurs fail to win tonight, Palace really only need to take 6 points from Villa only need to take 6 points from the last 3 games to be guaranteed of top 4. And at saying that, I don't think Spurs are taking 12 points from the last 4. I think they'll take 6 for certain because they play 2 bad teams. But I don't think they win at Anfield. So if they draw tonight and draw at Anfield, and let's say Brighton draw, in their game at Brighton. Villa are 6 points. If Villa draw at Brighton, I should say, if Villa would be 6 points clear, Spurs would have 3 games left. Villa would only need to win one of their last 2. I think it's done. Unless they win tonight, I think it's done. And it may be done anyway. Of course, if they don't win tonight, Tottenham, and they don't win at Anfield, there's nothing to play for in that City game, which they might just maybe not take it as seriously, which I think Arsenal fans will be devastated by, because that really is the only chance Arsenal have of winning the title, is that Tottenham take points off City there. It's the only chance they have. And that's assuming Arsenal win all 3 games. City are going to win their other games. Going into the game, in terms of the form table, Chelsea, you just don't know what to make of. They're 10th in the form table. Tottenham are 13th. Sorry, that's wrong. They're 7th. Tottenham are 8th. They've won 4, drawn 5. Only 1 defeat, but they got absolutely tonked by Arsenal. Spurs have won 5, drawn 1, lost 4. Home form, Chelsea are 5th. Away form, Tottenham are 13th. Only 1 win in the last 6 away games. That's not ideal. I think I'm going to back Chelsea to get at least a point tonight. Obviously, Chelsea, loads of injuries. Fofana, Lavia, Enzo, they're all done for the season. Ogachukwu, Nkunku, Colwill, James, they're out in a few weeks. Sterling's another few weeks. Chilwell might not be back this season. Malo Gusto might not be back this season. Chukwuemeka is out. Thiago Silva's out. Disasi is out, and Robert Sanchez is out. So it's a lot of players to be without. For Spurs, Adoiji's done for the season. That's a huge blow. Timo Werner's done for the season. That's the entire left flank gone. Fraser Forster's done for the season. Manor Solomon's done for the season. Ben Davies is done for the season. That was their 3rd choice left back. So now you're looking at Emerson Royale probably playing there, unless Porro switches across and Royale plays right back. I'll go the draw tonight. I'll go 1-1. Sandro Tonali has been given a suspended ban by the FA for betting breaches. So obviously he is currently suspended until until August of this year, after his charges from the Italian FA. And it appears that he made between 40 and 50 bets after joining Newcastle, including 4 on Newcastle games. He bet well in excess of €100,000. Like, that's a severe problem that he has. I just don't understand how he's not been given a further ban. I understand not wanting to hammer the kid too much. He is only 23. He's a young player who's made mistakes. And gambling is an addiction. But, I mean, they hammered Ivan Toney. Hammered him. The fella at Forest, Harry Toffolo, he got away with a suspended ban as well. And yet Ivan Toney was banned and missed the World Cup because of the ban. Like, everyone knew Ivan Toney was going to get suspended. So England left him out of the World Cup squad because it would have been a bad look. And then he lost out on a summer move, because he probably would have moved last summer to a top club. It could have been United, it could have been Chelsea, it could have been Arsenal, it could have been Spurs. He might not get that opportunity now this summer because he got hit so hard on his ban. Now, admittedly, he had, 260-odd bets that he'd made. But 40 to 50 bets after joining Newcastle, like, that's brutal. In a way, I'm glad he hasn't been hit too hard. I think when we look at what happened to Ivan Toney, it's a little bit unfair. Good piece here on Jadon Sancho having his mojo back. Ralf Rangnick has turned down the chance to become Bayern Munich manager. I think that's good news for Bayern. I think it would have been a horrible appointment. Will Still has left Reims by mutual consent. I have been mentioning recently how poor they've been. Obviously, there was a lot of hype around him last year, and people were very excited. And every time he took charge of a game, Reims were having to pay £22,000 because he did not have the UEFA Pro license. Everybody liked to mention that on social media every time they played. I don't imagine he'll be out of work for long. I do wonder if maybe he might look to go and be an assistant to somebody for a short period of time. Someone more experienced, someone that he can maybe learn a bit more from. But he's definitely got a big future, without question. Definitely has a big, big future. His brother Edward is also a manager, another young manager. He's only 33. He's had a couple of jobs. They haven't gone all that well. Did okay with Charleroi, not great, but okay. Eupen was awful. Kortrijk was his last job. It was a disaster. He got sacked after 8 games. I wonder if the Still brothers might be best served going together to work under a more experienced manager who can maybe guide them a little bit. On to the gossip. Arsenal are prepared to listen to offers for Gabriel Jesus. Not all that long ago, we were being told he was the best false nine in the world. Brighton will look to lure Kieran McKenna away from Ipswich if Roberto De Zerbi leaves at the end of the season. Wouldn't trust the journalist behind that story. Don't think McKenna will leave Ipswich this summer unless they fail to come up, which at this point would be a big surprise. A point is all they need. So I think he's staying at Ipswich for another year. He's not going to leave if he gets them up. Arsenal are hopeful that Jorginho will snub interest in Juventus, Lazio and Napoli. Sounds like somebody's fabricating interest from Juventus, Lazio and Napoli to sign a new contract extension. Tottenham are targeting Conor Gallagher and Santiago Jimenez this summer while also having eyes on Lloyd Kelly. Lloyd Kelly on a free would make sense as a backup, but he's not good enough to start for them. Jimenez would be a good get for them. I think he's really good. Everton could be forced to sell Jordan Pickford if their proposed takeover by 777 Partners collapses. I'd imagine Pickford is probably looking to go at this point anyway. Wouldn't be surprised if he ends up at Chelsea. Arsenal, Bayern Munich and Newcastle are among the favourites to sign Amadou Onana. Onana's really good. Really, really good. He's not what Arsenal need. They need a 6. Martin Zubimendi would make more sense. He'd be great at Newcastle if they can afford him. He'd be ideal. He's exactly what they need as a box-to-box ball-winning destroyer who can also be an impact player in the final third in terms of getting into the box and getting on the end of crosses. I don't really like the fit at Bayern either because, again, he's not a 6. He just gets misprofiled as one because he's big and he's a ball winner. Manchester United are planning to stick with Erik ten Hag because of a lack of clear alternatives, along with the potential cost of firing the Dutchman. And that's coming from Adam Crafton in The Athletic, so that's fairly reliable. Bruno Fernandes says his future at Manchester United will depend on whether the club want him to stay. I assume they will. Newcastle will not be pressured into selling Bruno Guimaraes below his 100 million release clause or parting with Alexander Isak. Isak is staying put this summer. Guimaraes, I think, will go. I'm not sure where. PSG seems the most likely right now. But I've seen a lot of people, including some well-placed people, say Man City. That City are the team to watch for with Kamarish, that Pep wants him and Paqueta this summer, and that they feel like with Bernardo Silva likely to leave and one or two other sales, including potentially Jack Grealish, that they can absolutely free up the money. Now, look, the money's not an issue, but it's the profit and sustainability side of things. Newcastle are closing in on Tosin Adarabioyo on a free. We'll see if that's true. Adarabioyo, who has attracted interest from AC Milan, Manchester United and Liverpool, has informed Fulham he will not sign a new contract. Everybody's known that for ages. Borussia Dortmund are considering bringing Jurgen Klopp back to the club as head of football. I would say no if I was advising them. As incredible and all as he is as a coach, I would say no. I'd have a horrible feeling he'd go and appoint Pep and Linders. Liverpool could look to sign William Pacho and then loan him back to Eintracht Frankfurt for next season. Highly unlikely. West Ham are expecting Mohamed Kudus, Lucas Paqueta and Edson Alvarez to push for moves away from the club. I don't see Alvarez pushing for a move. I don't see Kudus pushing for a move, but he has a buyout. I think the same is true of Paqueta. So I think those two could move on. I think Alvarez stays at least another year. Fluminense have presented a formal proposal to Thiago Silva. Everton are monitoring Jacob Greaves and Sammy Smodics. Greaves would make sense if Branthwaite goes. Feyenoord assistant manager Sipke Hushoff, head of performance Ruben Peters, and analyst Etienne Rijnen have agreed to follow Arne Slot to Liverpool. AC Milan and Juventus have turned their attention away from Joshua Zirkzee due to fears he would prefer someone move to Arsenal. I could definitely see him going to Arsenal. I think he's the striker they could land this summer. I don't think he's going to cost the same as the likes of Gyökeres and Isak that they've been linked with. Whether or not he can excel in the Premier League remains to be seen. He's still very young. He turns 23 later this month. He's had a good season, not a great season, but a good one. He did have a decent loan spell at Anderlecht. He's been a little bit hit and miss, but he is super talented, and you'd gamble on him for sure. You would definitely gamble on that level of talent. Ronald Araujo is deciding whether to sign a new contract with Barcelona amid interest from Manchester United and Bayern Munich. Ralph Rangnick, yada yada. Crystal Palace manager Oliver Glasner would like to be reignited with Philippe Kostic. I wouldn't believe that, but maybe. I mean, him left wing, Mitchell left side centre back, that could work quite well. That's it, folks. That's all I have for today. I will see you all tomorrow. Take care. Bye bye.
Sports Social Podcast Network.